What up, folks? What it do? Welcome to another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Yeah, with your boy, the bow tie comedian, Mike Goodwin. We're back. And I'm back without doing a bow tie. Just gonna be myself, because this bow tie situation can be a lot. It's a lot of moving pieces and parts. First is I put on a nice shirt and my hat. I'm ready to roll. I grab a dress shirt. Then like, hey, did I get the collars for my dress shirt? Does this dress shirt need cufflinks? Oh, I hadn't worn this jacket in a while. And it's holding on to me like siblings that have been long lost from one another. So I said, okay, let's reevaluate this for ease and simplicity. And so we were out the bow tie today. And I think we're going to have a great episode anyway. As you know, each episode begins with the On the Road Again segment. Now, this week, I was not on the road. I was home with the family all the days. I think I got back home on Sunday around possibly 3:30ish from Colorado. And my family is entering the phase of AAU basketball. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is my son's second year playing AAU. Last year, we played sort of, kind of. Like last year, he was going to the practices, but he didn't always go to the games. So I think this year we are committed to going to the games. Now, if you want to talk about a racket, look no further than an AAU basketball situation. Now, I don't know about volleyball. I don't know about other forms of AAU, but basketball, look, I need to get in on some of this action because they are bleeding people for money. Look, the average weekend, because from what I understand, I'm new. I'm a newly initiated AAU parent. Now, back in my day, when I was a young lad, back in my day, it was exclusive. It was elite. It was selective to be on an AAU team. Wasn't a lot of AAU teams, and you really had to try out to get on the team. And the people that played on the AAU circuit were the better players. That's not what AAU is now. It's like recreation basketball has snuck over into the AAU landscape. Because again, AAU was for the ballers, for the folks that were scholarship candidates to various schools, whether that be Division II, Division I, Division III, whatever the level of athletics or basketball you find yourself in. The kids that were playing on the AAU circuit were typically the better athletes. There were only a few teams. There wasn't very many teams. Now, there is a plethora of teams. You can throw a rock and hit an AAU team, and they are going to get your money. They're getting your money. They're going to get your money in a variety of ways. You're going to pay the AAU fee, money. You're going to go and watch your children play in these AAU games? Money. Because you're there for the majority of the day, you're going to be spending money on concessions. More money. You're going to travel much further than your local area. Money. In some cases, you may need to get lodging for the team or your child. Money. Hey, just for a little cheap wrist bracelet, a little cheap wrist bracelet. And the crazy part, hey, I'm never gonna knock anyone's legal hustle. If you out here legitimately within the realms of legal society, hey man, do what you do. But it's one thing to pay this money to see these games, and there's nobody at the scores table. There's no one keeping the books. The referees, they are timely. They kind of lollygag in at their own pay. It's woo. And we're not even going to talk about the basketball ability that my son possessed. And as we get older, it's seeming to dissipate. It's beginning to vanish. Now, I've realized recently he needs another voice. So I'm going to have him train. That's a very loose word with someone. And I know a high school coach and his assistant coach, and he have some training opportunities. So I said, yeah, my son needs to stop hearing so much from me. He's going to continue to hear from me, but not so much. Not so much. So we will table his playing time discussion, but just the arena of AAU basketball is mind blowing. It's really like a rite of passage for parents. Like you're going to have to go down this road to get your parent certification at the end to say, I have all the awards and decorations for my years of service. You need to get that AAU ribbon on your dress blues. Man, you talking about consuming a day. Day gone. I think Saturday, my son, they had an 8:30 game. Now, again, this is not where I live. This is 30-minute trips, which is great. Like, they could easily been in North Charleston or Rock Hill or some other part of the state or even another state, but they were about 30 miles from my home. And then they went to another spot called Gilbert. Yes, sir. We were out in Gilbert so you went to Gilbert, and at 8 that morning, we didn't go to Gilbert. We went to a place in Lexington. So they finished that game. Let's say they finished that game around 9:40 or so. Now we're back home 11 o'clock. Now the next game doesn't happen until 4 o'clock. So we need to be back around 3:15. Nice little gap there between 11 to 2-ish, 2:30-ish. That was fine. Then we go back, 4 o'clock game, and then depending on your win or loss, we played either that night again at 8:15, which we ended up doing. So I didn't leave. This time. That was about 3 hours. We ended at 5. And then the next game was going to be at 8. I said, yeah, we just go chill. And I bring my stuff. I bring my bag and books and tablets. So I'm very well prepared. But yeah, it's the AAU interesting. And it's interesting to find yourself rooting for your child's team to lose so you can go back home. Like, hey man, y'all know. I would not be upset. I think in most cases you get 4 games. I think that's what they're trying to give each team. 4 games at the minimum. You get 4 games, 2 games one day, and then 2 games the other day. But yeah, I think we had 3 games and 1 game. 3 games, 1 game. And I'm not even concerned about the wins and losses. I'm concerned about, hey man, how soon do we get up out of here? And the other thing I'm concerned about is my son's development. I want him to understand. And I think he enjoys it. I think he enjoys being on the team. They have a pretty competitive team. We don't win. We if you come out of the weekend, we're often 50. We're at 500. We win 2 and lose 2 on average. That's about where we are. 2-2. Now sometimes we can be 1-3 or 3-1. We got a nice little team. So y'all pray my strength in the Lord. Here's the time that you've been waiting for. The best advice ever. Best advice ever is simply don't complain. Man, don't complain. I know that the older I get, I'm realizing that things are going to happen, and most times it doesn't help to complain about them. Now, sometimes complaining helps. I'm not of the opinion that complaining does not help. I'm just saying my advice to you is don't be a complainer. Don't be a complainer. Don't be a person that is always complaining and always is critical and finding issues with everything. Be solution oriented. As I was making my notes, I simply said, whining is not sexy. Who doesn't want to be sexy? I know this is this is some strange information on my podcast, because like this is clean comedian Mike Goodwin. This is a Christian guy, but hey man, whining is not sexy. There's nothing sexy about that. And I definitely do think that there's a level of leadership that involves sexiness. but we don't call it sexiness. We say it's attractive. It's more appropriate to say that, hey man, that is a very attractive trait. If you say sexy trait, you hear that music. Now I'm not talking about that. We're just saying that whining is not desirable. It's not something that folks want to hear regularly. A little bit of whining, like a little sprinkle, like a dab will do you. You can't be whining all the time. Not always having issues with everything. No complaining, people. Don't complain. Don't complain. Figure out a way to better communicate your needs. I think that's one thing that I've learned over the years, how to communicate my emotions. Again, I'll say it. I've said it a few times. Men traditionally have not been able to talk about how they feel. It's not deemed appropriate. Men, from my experience, being a man all the days of my life, even when I was not a man, I was a pre-man with the goal of becoming a man. Even when I was a young boy, I wanted to be a man, boys to men. That was my goal. Let me get over there in that manhood situation. And as I was going along that journey, I deemed the two emotions that men could effectively express or express without impunity or condemnation or speculation or criticism. Two emotions. You could be angry and you could be horny. Those are the two that you could be. You could be angry or you could have a desire for a girlfriend or girls, women, ladies, right? And as I've developed, grown, mature, I've realized, hey, man, I'm sad sometimes. Sometimes I'm very frustrated. There are times that I'm happy. Oh, can't be happy. Not you, little black boy. No happiness for you. No black boy joy for you. And what has happened, instead of having healthy modes of communication, you adopt very passive aggressive, unhealthy, combative ways to communicate. And one of those ways is to complain and to be critical and to always point a judging finger, a finger of judgment. And I've learned to effectively communicate all my emotions. And hey, I'm a little disappointed at how you are engaging with me. This makes me very sad. Oh man, you sad? Oh, look at Mr. Sad. Oh, you want to cry? You sad? You want your mommy? Hey, stop. And not just men. Men don't just do it to you. Women will do it to you too. You say you feel a certain way. Oh, you want me to give you a hug? You're like, hey, quit deflecting. Quit trying to not get to the heart of the matter. And try to inhibit men from communicating. So it's important for us to don't complain. Don't complain. Don't complain. Don't be a complainer. Don't find yourself with something to say. My mom, my mom's one of the most positive people I know. Maybe to a fault sometimes. It's like, Mama, you need to say something about that. But if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Don't complain. So that's been the advice of the day. Now, I've been talking about this for a while. The Church of Prime Time. The Church of Deion Sanders. I've been a big proponent of what Deion had going on in Jackson State. Now Deion is at Boulder. He's at the University of Colorado, and he's been very provocative or controversial a little bit, but Deion's always been that way. But now he's doing some things that's like it seems to be a little trolling. It seems to be a little petty. And so I'm not out of the church. I'm not left the church. I just haven't been to service in a few weeks. But I did read this article in GQ. And when I was going over my stuff, I need to give y'all the month, the issue. And I don't even have the reporter's name, but as I read it, I just felt, there's often a conversation around, and this is heightened. This conversation has heightened, I know, within the last 15 years, especially since I've been in college, the idea of the media. The media. When you say the media, it represents liberal thinking, the aha, I gotcha, this not a Christian worldview, but a secular worldview, the media. And they have an agenda, and there's something that's nefarious about the media, right? And that's kind of been the vibes, depending on what the publication is. New York Times, the Washington Post, everybody has an angle. Fox News, CNN, NBC, all these outlets, right? So I'm thinking GQ, hey, GQ, just want to talk to you, boy, about fashion, right? What's the trends and the style, the style movements and what's happening in society. So I'm reading this article, and I don't like the tenor of the writer. He seems a little disrespectful, kind of slick. He asked the question, would I let my son play for him? He said, I would play for him. And then he talks about his money. He says he got $29.5 million over 5 years. Says Deion's the only person to play in the Super Bowl and the World Series. Talked about the Colorado's team, their 1-11 finish. He says the Pac-12 is the highest echelons of college football. What? This is what the writer says. Basically talking about Deion working at Colorado. And he says the Pac-12 is the highest echelon of college football. Yeah, it's debatable. One thing I've been enjoyed with one of the phrases that Deion has been saying, it says, in coaching, there's either elevation or termination. I think that's an excellent way to kind of look at it. So this writer talks about Troy Aikman being one of his close friends. And he uses words like Deion was luring top recruits. Say when he took the job at JSU, he claimed he was answering God. Like those words just seem a very antagonistic unnecessarily. So Deion, it seemed to be there was an issue about when they could talk. So they were talking on the phone. Deion wanted to meet in person. Deion was very standoffish from what the author was communicating. So then they finally go to a lunch spot, and the guy says they go to this lunch spot, an unusual pick for someone who famously doesn't drink. He says Deion specializes in two things, performance and spectacle. So I want, one of my goals is to be profiled in GQ magazine. And if that is the type of profile, if it's going to be someone who has a very different opinion of me than I do of myself, I was like, oh man, would I be still interested in being interviewed? And I found out this to be, it felt a little disingenuous, felt shady, man, reading what this guy was writing as it relates to Deion. Like if I'm in GQ, I wanted to be like, I'm handing out the articles, like, yo, check this out. But after reading that, if I was Deion, I would really feel like, hey man, it's the media. Or I would not be a fan of what was written. So I was talking about this article for weeks. And so I finally was able to share my thoughts on this. And I've said so about 3 times. I heard it. I counted it. Also, a new segment I've added was the phrase that is interesting segment. I've been listening to a lot of baseball, especially college baseball. I'm a University of South Carolina fan, and I like the big teams. I like football, basketball, baseball, women's basketball. I'm a big fan. Those are probably the ones I tune in. I'll listen to the games. So I was listening to the baseball game this weekend, and the announcer said, put a little extra mustard on his hot dog. And I was like, what is that? and for those of you that are not familiar with baseball lexicon, it's basically adding velocity to the pitch. So a heater, I don't think a hot dog is a fastball, but I think when you're throwing a fastball, if you put a little mustard on it, that means it's extremely fast. And so I found that to be a very interesting phrase. Put a little mustard on his hot dog, a little extra mustard on that one. I was like, I need to put a little extra mustard on some of these jokes. Put a little extra mustard on your counseling session at your work, at your job. What can you do a little better? Put a little bit of more intensity. I know Jeremy's going to put a little extra mustard on this editing for this podcast, right? I found that to be a very interesting phrase. And as we wrap up for the day, I'll share from the mind of Mike. Y'all, I fell down. I was on a run about a week ago, and I'm talking about I ate it. I'm talking about I was sprinting the last maybe 10 yards, and I wiped out. There's a meme that's going around like, cool ways to die, or something like that. There's this thing. If somebody was recording me falling, I would have been meme worthy. I would have went viral. I skinned my knee. I mean, I was airborne. I had to do like the military tuck and roll. Like it would have put a lesser man in the emergency room. It would have put a less active person in the hospital. Now, it probably wouldn't have, because they wouldn't have been out there sprinting in their neighborhood. I mean, I ate it. My knee I'm talking about my knee tore up. So I had a meeting with a call that I was getting on at 9 with my wife. And I'm talking knee skinned up, like it's red. I come in the house and I sit down, I get a little paper towel and I'm dabbing it. She looking so concerned. And I'm embarrassed. You want to tell your wife, I just fell down. My male machismo, that men, you can't say, hey, I'm hurt. I hurt myself. Hey, I hurt myself on my run. You can't, hey, man laws, man codes, right? My wife looking like, what happened? I'm like, I got in a fight. That's my mind. So mind of Mike Goon. Instead of telling my wife, hey, was sprinting, trip, wiped out. Now I got in a fight. I'm out on my run. Put my hands on this dude. Disrespecting my run pace. Disrespecting my stride. I had to put my hands on him. This is the silly stuff we find ourselves doing. From the mind of Mike, I just should have said, hey, man, I fell down. No. Got in the fight. You see the other guy. Tore my knee up. Well, thank y'all again for checking in. Hopefully this has been entertaining, educational, inspirational for you. I know I've enjoyed my time. Check me out on social media. I'm at Bowtie Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. Really not on Twitter, but if you're on Instagram, TikTok, I'm at Bowtie Comedy on Facebook. I'm at comedianmikegoodwin.com. I also watch this on YouTube. I got about 20 views, people. This is, even if you don't watch it, just play it and put it on mute. Like you could have it. I need more than 20 views. Like this. Even if you just listen to the audio part of it, just play it while you go to bed and on mute. Just have it go through, because I got to get some people over to YouTube to look at my stuff. Me and Jeremy spent some time recently getting videos off the platform, because it's like, hey, man, those been out there for 4 years with a whole 17 views. Man, get that thing off there. Take that down, my guy. Also, share, like, subscribe, tell folks about the podcast, man. I hope you're really enjoying it. If you want to send me a question, I have a Q, the Ask the Bowtie segment. You can send that to info@mikegoodwin.com. If you're not on my email list, just drop by MikeGoodwin.com/updates, and you'll get all the information about my upcoming tours. We're putting together the dates for the tour that will take place fall of 2023. I'll give you the name of it. We're going to launch it and drop dates and cities and all that good stuff. But again, thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. I'm your boy, Mike Goodwin. Peace.